Right. Good day, grade 12 learners. Welcome to today's tourism lesson. I'm Mr. Samgelo Innocent Luyanda Nkonyeni, one of the grade 12 tourism educators and head of department from Ekurhuleni South District. This lesson is brought to you by Gauteng Department of Education in collaboration with Sibona Discovery Center and a broadcast by Pagama Research and Development. Today we are still busy with term 2's work, but now I'm going to be dealing with foreign exchange, and I have titled my heading as Foreign Exchange Part 1. There's a reason for that. Today we are only going to be looking at Part 1, and then next week we'll look at Part 2, which deals with calculations. Right, my sources are from Via Africa Grade 12 Learners Book, Focus Grade 12 Tourism Learners Book, and Oxford Successful Grade 12 Learners Book. My activities are from some of the previous exam question papers, and there's a reason for that. This is so that we can all get used to the standard or the way the exam papers have been set, right? So all my activities are from our DBE past exam papers. I hope you have pen and paper there with you so that you can be able to jot down the notes and also the activities as we move along, right? We are still busy with term 2's work, foreign exchange. This is going to be question 3 of your papers, your prelim papers and also your final papers, and some of the activities that your teacher is currently busy with. Let's move. Right, the lesson focus objectives for today, right? Remember that we are affected by COVID-19 in the previous 2 years and learners could not even go to school. So I'm going to start with foreign exchange a bit from grade 11 so that we can be able to remember or to remind ourselves of some of the concepts. In tourism, we call them concepts, and then in some subject, they call it what? Terminology. So we are going to be focusing first on foreign exchange concepts or terminology or terms, right? Meaning the terms that you are going to come across when you are doing what? Foreign exchange. Remember the past 2 weeks, we've been dealing with foreign market share, whereby we're dealing with international, the stats in terms of international arrivals to South Africa. Then last week we moved to marketing, right? So what are we trying to say here? This is a link of all these topics. We are trying by all means to do what? To try to attract the international tourists to visit our country. So this is part of foreign exchange, what we're going to be looking at today, because the international tourists, when they have to come here, they need to use our money. Even us, when we go to their countries, we need to use our money. So we're going to learn a bit about foreign exchange. Which concepts are we going to be looking at, or terms that we're going to be looking at? The first one, we will learn about what is currency. We all know what is that. Then we will get the difference between what is local currency and foreign currency. Then from there, we will move to foreign exchange. What do we mean by foreign exchange? Then we will move to concept number 4, which is an exchange rate. And then we will then move to currency fluctuation, right? These are some of the things that we dealt with in grade 11, but they are still part of grade 12's syllabus. Particularly for grade 12, we'll also look at the concept of GDP or gross domestic product. So those who are doing business studies and those who are doing economics, this should be a bit easier for you when we deal with gross domestic product, right? But now we are going to be looking at the value or the importance of GDP and its link to South African economy, particularly also its link to tourism, right? Because we are dealing with tourism. So we will look at the effects of GDP and the link of GDP to tourism. Then we will move a bit to explaining what we call currency fluctuations, or the fluctuations of the different exchange rates that we have. From there, we will move in terms of how to interpret the currency rate tables, how to interpret the graphs, and also how to interpret the currency rate sheets, right? This is what you're going to come across, especially when you go to your bank and so on. Also, when you get your papers, when we do the calculations. We'll also then move to the difference between a strong and a weak rand. We normally hear that, no, our currency is strong, our currency is weak. So today we'll also learn what do we mean actually when we say a currency is strong or a currency it is weak. Then the last thing that we're going to look at before the activities, it is the impacts, right? The impacts or the effects of a strong currency, and also the effects on what of a weak currency, particularly focusing on the effects on international tourism, because we are trying by all means to what, to try to attract what, our international tourists, right? So those are the lesson objectives or the focus for today's presentation. Let's move. Let's just first start to try to explain this term currency. So when we are talking about currency, obviously we are talking about what? Ching or chelete or money. But in this context, what type of money are we talking about? So a currency, it is a medium of exchange for goods and services. It is the medium of exchange for goods and services. So if your goods are tangible, obviously you need to trade, you need to exchange. Then we're talking about what? You need that particular money for you to get your goods. I give you my goods, you give me money. It is a medium of exchange for goods and services. Remember, we said here a service, it is something intangible, right? A service, it is an experience, right? For example, when you go to the hotel or to a restaurant and then you want to dine and then there's a long queue and all of that, you are going to be frustrated because of what? Of poor service. Or when you order your meal and so on, then it is delivered late, then you are going to be frustrated. That is part of what? Of service. So hence we are saying service, it is an experience. So currency, it is a medium of exchange for goods and services. They serve you food, then what you do, you pay them in exchange for that particular service. So what is currency? It is money in the form of paper or coins. We know what we normally use. So it is money in the form of paper and coin, usually issued by the government and generally accepted as its face value as a method of what? Of payment, right? It is a money in the form of paper and coins, generally accepted at its face value as a method for payment. Payment for what? For goods and services. So there we're talking about what? We are talking about what? Currency. Then we move, then we are saying we've got different currencies. For example, there on the screen you can see now we have the United States dollars, right? Then we have the term known as local currency. Local currency. Let me just show you this. Picture of local currency. There we are going to be talking about the South African. Okay, the rand, right? South African rand, for example, in South Africa we use what? ZAR, which is South African rand. So what is local currency? Local currency, it is money that is in circulation in a specific country, right? It is money. Remember, we spoke about what is currency first. So local currency, it is money that is in circulation in a specific country. What does this money do? And used by people living and visiting that particular country to buy what? Goods and services. Local currency, it is money that is in circulation in a specific country and used by the people living and visiting that area for what? To purchase or to buy goods and services. Then that is what? Local. So our local currency, it is what? It is ZAR, or what? South African rand, right? Another explanation, remember I said I'm using different sources or textbook. They are saying local currency, it is money that is used again in a specific country, but now here they are explaining further. Why are we using that money? To purchase goods and services by residents and also the visitors of that particular country. It is the national currency of the country. In South Africa, for example, we use what? ZAR, right? That is our South African rand. We're talking about our 50 rands, 100 rands, 200 rands, and so on. You'll see a picture later that has all the notes that we are using here in South Africa. So what do we call that? We call it what? Local currency. Then we have foreign currency. Foreign. Right? What is something that is foreign to you? Remember, something that is foreign is something that you are not used to. So in this context, when we are talking about foreign currency, we are talking about what? Money from another country. Right? So when all those international tourists come to South Africa, what is it that they will have? They will have their foreign currency, right? Because they need to use our local currency, then what must happen? They need to take their foreign money or foreign currency and then convert it to what? To our South African rand, so that they can be able to do what? To buy or to purchase goods and services, also to pay for the services that they will receive when they visit our country. So foreign currency, it is money from another country used to purchase goods and services. By who's using this money? The residents and visitors in that particular or specific country. So you need to know this term, because time and again when you are doing this question 3, we are going to be coming across what? Foreign currency. Foreign currency. Just remember that when you are talking about foreign currency, we are talking about what? Money from another country. Right? When you look at that, for example, we've got the picture that is showing what? The United States dollar. Right? So the United States dollar, for example, it is one of the major currencies of the world. Obviously, how do you write it? It is USD. The first 2 letters, it is the country, and then letter number 3, it is the currency that it is used in that particular country. So US, it is what? United States. What do they use? They use what? Dollars. Hence, they say it is USD. So here it is what? The 3-letter code of the currency. So USD, it is one of the major or main currencies of the world. Right? Here's another one. Then here we've got what? Euros, right? Euros or European euro, right? Obviously, the 3-letter code from grade 11, it is EUR. You need to know that as well, right? It is EUR. Then we know that we are talking about what? Our European euro. It is a foreign currency to us because our currency is what? It is ZAR. And then that is still the same picture of the euro, foreign currency to us. And then we have this term that is known what? As an exchange rate. Exchange rate, right? Remember, we said that all those international tourists, when they are coming to South Africa, they need to exchange, right? It is about buying and selling. They need to exchange their currencies to local. Even us, when we leave South Africa and go to a foreign country, we need to exchange our rands to the currency of that particular country that we are visiting. So there is a rate. When we are talking about a rate here, we are talking about the value, right? Meaning, how much are you buying £1? How much are you buying $1? How much are you buying USD, and so on? So an exchange rate here, the rate again, can I say, to put it easier, it is what? The amount. At the amount that is charged for a particular currency. So an exchange rate, when you go to the bank, right? Remember in grade 11, we also dealt with different facilities whereby a person can be able to do what? An exchange, to exchange what? Foreign currency. So when you get there by the bank, or obviously the major bank, you're going to come across an exchange rate table, right? And that particular exchange rate will be showing you the BBR and BSR, which is going to be showing you the rate or the amount that is going to be used when you're either buying or selling that particular currency. So what is an exchange rate? It is a rate. Remember I said next to rate we write what? Amount in brackets. It is the rate used by banks and also foreign exchange providers to do what? To convert local currency into foreign currency, or to convert foreign currency into local currency, right? An exchange rate, it is the rate or the amount used by foreign exchange officials. Obviously, then we're talking about those ones that are registered legally. So an exchange rate, it is a rate used by the banks or foreign exchange providers to convert local currency into foreign currency, or to convert foreign currency into local currency. It will depend in terms of where are you going and where are you. Right. Then we have this particular table. You will know that on the news every day, if you watch the news and read the newspapers, they normally talk about the exchange rates time and again, right? So here we normally compare what? 2 days. We compare what happened today with what happened yesterday. So this is how you will know. You will come across a table like this. The far left, we have what? The currencies or the 3-letter codes for each currency. The first one, we've got USD, obviously, United States dollar, GBP, Greater British Pound, EUR, European Euros. Sometimes you'll have Australian dollar there, or sometimes you'll have Botswana, which is Pula. Sometimes you'll have JPY, which is Japanese yen, right? Then we said we compare what happened on the 2nd and what happened the previous day. So you need to know. So all these are used to measure or to know how much. So for example, on the 2nd of June 2022, how much were you buying $1? You were buying $1 with what? With 15 Rand 59 cents. Then on the 1st, you were buying $1 with what? With 15 Rand 49 cents. Then you go to pounds. On the 2nd, you were buying £1 with how much? 19 Rand 47 cents. And then on the 1st, 1927. Then the euro, on the 2nd, it was 1666. And then on the 1st, it was 1661. So this is very important so that you know the value of each currency, because this also helps us to know whether our currency, it is strong or weak. So how do you know or see that our currency, it is weak? Let's check US dollar, for example. So on the 2nd, we are buying $1 with how much? 15 Rand 59 cents. Obviously, we know our currency overall, it is weak compared to these currencies. How do you know that it is weak? It is weak when you are paying more, right? So let's check. Just to buy $1 on the 22nd, we are paying what? 15.59, meaning the dollar, it is strong compared to us. On the 1st, again, you were paying what? 15 rand 49 cents. Then on this day, we can say our currency was a bit strong compared to the rand, because on the second, we're paying more. So here we will say on the second, our currency was weak. Why? Because we were paying what? 15 rand 59 cents. Then our currency on the first, it was strong because we were paying how much? 15 rand 49 cents. Right? We need to pay less to buy what? Foreign currency. We need to pay less. So when we are paying less, then you know that the currency, it is strong. But when you are paying more, then you know that the currency, it is weak. Ne? Let's move. Let's just compare again. Then let's check British pound. When was the rand strongest? The rand was strongest on the first. Right? Because on the first, how much were you paying to buy a 1 British pound? 19 rand 27 cents. But when you check the second, you were paying what? 1947. Meaning on the second, our currency was what? Very weak. We are weak when we pay more to buy foreign currency. Our currency will be doing good, or it will be strong when we are paying what? Less to buy foreign currency. So each day, remember we said this exchange rate, they change second by second. So from economics point of view and from tourism point of view, especially when it comes to traveling, you need to know what is going on in terms of the exchange rate and check this time and again. Right. Then we have another concept known as foreign exchange. So what do you mean when you are talking about foreign exchange? It is the conversion. Right here, obviously, we will need your skills from mathematical literacy and also your skills from pure maths, whereby you are doing currency conversions, right? So when you convert, for example, foreign exchange, it is the conversion of one currency into the value of another currency. Obviously, how do we do these conversions? Obviously, the conversions, they are based on the exchange rates. Remember, we spoke about what is an exchange rate. We said it is the rate used by the bank and foreign exchange providers to convert local currency. So it is very important that you know the exchange rate first, so that you can know whether are you going to be losing or gaining. So foreign exchange, it is the conversion of one currency into the value of another currency. It is the practice of converting one currency into another. Then that is what? Foreign exchange. It is the practice of converting one currency into another, or it is a conversion of one currency into the value of another. Obviously, we use what? We use the exchange rates, right, to help us to calculate how much will we receive when we buy or sell currency. So foreign exchange, obviously you need what? The exchange rate, right? You don't just go and say, I need this much for this one. You need to know that you know your exchange rate, and your exchange rate will help you in order for you to be not cheated or robbed. Right. Those are the concepts that we have from grade 11. So it is very important that we know them, because it is built. Remember, I said FET, it is grade 10, 11, and 12, meaning your grade 12 paper, you also need some of the information from grade 10 and 11. Then we've got concept number 3, which is gross domestic product, right? Remember, in economics, there's also GNP, gross national product. But here in tourism, we are only focusing what? On gross domestic products. Remember, in grade 10, we also spoke about what? Domestic tourism. We said domestic tourism, it is tourism that happens here within the country. So when we're talking about gross domestic products, we are saying it is the total financial value of goods and services produced where in a country for a period of 1 year. GDP, it is the total financial value of goods and services produced in a country in a period of 1 year. What does GDP do in tourism context? A GDP, it helps us to measure how the country's economy is doing. So when they say our GDP figures are going down, it means our our economy is not doing good. When they say our GDP is doing good, then it means our economy, it is healthy. So the GDP helps to measure the country's economy. Right? The second explanation of GDP, it is the monetary value of all goods and services produced in a country, again for a specific time. Which time are we talking about? For a period of a year. So when you are asked to explain what is GDP, you need to remember those two explanations. If you are doing economics or business studies, then this will be a bonus for you. It is the total financial value of goods and services produced in a country within a period of a year. We may also give you this in your papers, and ask you to write it in full. You just need to remember the G stands for gross, the D for domestic, and then the P for products. It is the monetary value of all goods and services produced in a country over a specific time, usually over a year. Right. Then I'm going to move to the link of GDP to tourism. Why are we doing GDP in tourism context? Right? I'm going to give you 2 minutes. And then in that 2 minutes, I just want you to make sure that you have added down this concept, especially the one of GDP and the one that is going to come from the next slide. I'll be back just now. Right, let's move. I hope we have just added down that concept of GDP. We are still dealing with tourism, whereby we are looking at foreign exchange. We have just dealt with foreign exchange concept, meaning what is foreign exchange and exchange rate, local currency, and foreign currency. Now we were just explaining the gross domestic product, or the GDP. We said the GDP, it is the total financial value of goods and services produced in a country within 1 year, right, or annually. It is the monetary value of all goods and services produced in a country over a specific time. And then we said usually a year. And then what is the link of GDP? The GDP helps us to measure how the country's economy is doing. Now let's move to trying to explain what is the link. How does this GDP link to our subject of tourism? Remember, we said in grade 10 that tourism entails traveling from one place to the other. But in this context, we are talking about what? International tourism, right? So this is the link of GDP to tourism. The first thing we are saying that when all the tourists travel to South Africa from whatever country that they come from, we are saying that the country that they are visiting will generate what? Money, right? The country that the tourists are visiting will generate what? Income from the tourists. How does this happen? It starts where there by our border posts, whereby now the tourists are doing what? Foreign exchange, whereby they are converting their foreign currency to our local currency, right? What happens? We are saying the country will receive money from who? From inbound tourists. So we are saying inbound tourism, it is a form of an export revenue, right? Remember, export and import, right? So when all those tourists visit our country, remember we call that what? Inbound tourism. The first thing that they will need is what? It is our local currency. So we are saying again, when a country export items such as gold, it earns what? Foreign exchange. So when all those tourists enter our borders, this is where we are benefiting from them. When tourists visit our country, they want to experience our beautiful scenery. They want to experience scenery that is beautiful, remember. They want to experience our cuisine. There is different types of food that we have. They want to experience our attractions, or maybe they are just coming in here for tourism business. So we are saying when they enter, this is how now their money becomes what? An export for us. They bring their foreign currency, right? But above all, this is what happens. They spend it, right? And because we are saying that when they enter here, we want them to spend their monies. This is how now tourism links to the country's GDP. The more tourists are spending their foreign currency, this is the more our economy will be growing. Because foreign tourists are visiting South Africa and they bring their foreign currency, then tourism is then classified as an invisible export, right? They come from where they come from, they need what? Our local currency. So that trade, that exchange that happens, right? This is whereby now tourism becomes what? An invisible what? Export. Above all, remember what I said. We said we want those people to come here, gather here above all, and do what? And spend their money. Money generated from inbound tourism, it is a form of an export or revenue. Revenue is what? Profit. When a country, for example, export items, when you export, remember we get things from outside, right? Such as gold, it earns what? A foreign exchange when you sell them as well. So tourists, when they visit our country, they want to experience what? The different scenery. They want to experience our beautiful mountains. They want to experience our beautiful oceans. They want to experience our attractions. They want to experience the different types of foods that we have. Or maybe they're just coming here for business reasons. So we are saying they bring what? Their foreign currency into our country. Then immediately when they do that, then they spend this money, and their spending of that money then makes tourism what? An invisible export, because they are coming here for what? for tourism reasons, right? Then that is the link of GDP. Remember again, we are saying when they have to come here, they need to pay what? For flights. Remember, we said tourism, it is a movement, right? For people to move, they need what? Mobility, right? They need what? Flights. And flights are not for free. From the flights, let us say now maybe they need to travel to other provinces or to maneuver around the province from the flights. Then they need what? They will go to our car rentals. We dealt with car rentals in grade 11. By the car rental, what must they do? They need to hire transport that is going to help them to move around. Then remember here we're talking about what? International tourists. The third thing that they will need for us, they will need a place to sleep. So they will visit what? Our accommodation sector. There they will decide to book accommodation. And we know that is also they need to pay what? Money for booking for their stay. Then they decide to go on an experience, safari experience there by Kruger National Park, or they might decide to go and dine by the restaurant and have food, or they might decide to buy souvenirs or kudo or visit attractions. And all this, they require them to do what? To spend. When you visit some of the attractions, then they need to pay entrance fees and so on. And this spending, we are saying the more they are spending, it is the more they contribute to our country's GDP, and it is the more our economic growth. And remember, these are international tourists. So what are we saying here? Remember, international tourists or international markets, most of the time they come with air transport. Obviously, these are people from long distances. And the longer they stay here, the longer they stay in our country, it is the more they'll spend. They are spending what? They are spending their foreign currency. And the more they are spending, the more they are spending where? Remember, we are discussing tourism. The more they are spending their money on taking flights, maybe from OR Tambo to Cape Town, or from King Shaka to OR Tambo and so on, it is the more their monies will be contributing to our GDP. The more they are spending, it is the more our economy grows. Right. If they are going to stay longer, again, by our accommodation establishments, remember the rates are per person per day, per person per night, per person sharing, and you want them to stay longer because you know that the longer they stay, it is the more that they are going to be paying for accommodation. And this is whereby now tourism plays a role in the economy. Let me just go back a bit. So we are saying, what is the link? It is all about what? Tourist spending. Which tourist? International tourists. When they come here, number one, we said, what do? They need our service. They need our local currency. So what must they do? They must exchange their foreign currency to local currency. Once they have our local currency, now they need to spend their money. Where are they spending their money? They spend their money on our flights. They spend their money on car rental. They spend their monies on accommodation. They may decide to go on safari experience at Kruger National Park or some parks that we have here in South Africa. And when they are busy doing that, they are also paying. It is not for free. They may decide to go to one restaurant to go there and eat. That is also what? Money. Right. Then we move to the benefits. The benefits of gross domestic products to South Africa's economy. Now we have an understanding a bit of what is GDP. Then we moved now to explaining the link of tourism and GDP. Right? Now we are moving to the benefits of gross domestic products to South African economy. Point number one, we are saying, remember we said GDP helps to measure what? The country's economy. So we are saying a healthy GDP figure, a healthy GDP will result in more money for who? For the government. So the government will have money to what? To pay rates. The government will have money to pay salaries of all the government employees. The government will have money to create more schools. The government will have more money to create what? More tourism attractions. The government will have less debts and so on. So a healthy GDP figures, then they result in what? In more money for the government. The second thing we are saying, when a country has a good GDP growth, then what will happen? More jobs or employment opportunities in the country. But particularly for us, we are focusing what? On the tourism sector. So when the economy is doing good, when the country's GDP figures are good, then that results in good advantages in terms of more employment opportunities in the country, particularly for us in the tourism sector, right? We know that infrastructure also is part of our economy. So when the economy is doing good, then infrastructure will be developed or upgraded. Our roads will be upgraded. Our hospitals will be renovated and so on. So a good GDP also plays a role on the economy, because a healthy GDP will result in more infrastructure to be developed and some of the infrastructure to be upgraded. Then obviously in a country you've got what? People who are living there. So when our economy is doing good or we have a healthy GDP, it means what? Our lives will be improved, right? People will have jobs, people will move from shacks to better places, people will be driving and so on and so on. And this leads to what? To improvement in the standard of living for who? For the local community. So that is the benefit of GDP to the South African economy. Number one, a healthy GDP will result in more money for the government, right? Number two, healthy GDP contributes to better or more employment opportunities in the country. A healthy GDP will result in development of infrastructure or upgrading of infrastructure. A healthy GDP obviously also affects who? The social, the people who are living in that particular country. In terms of what? There will be improvement in the standard of living for the locals. Right. Then we move to another concept, which is known as multiplier effect or multiple. It comes from multiplication. So multiplier comes from the multiple. So what are we talking about when you're talking about multiplier effect? Remember, we are saying, right? We are talking about what? Foreign exchange. We are talking about what? Foreign tourists coming into our country with their what? Their foreign currency. So what happens there? Multiplier effect, this is my explanation. It is how much money, again, it is all about what? Money. Obviously, here we're talking about what? Foreign currency. How much money? Which money? Foreign currency. Remember, we spoke about this when we started. How much money brought into the country? Who brings this money? Foreign tourists. What does this money do? This money circulates, right? Meaning moves from one point to the other. The more the tourists spend, it is the more the effect it is happening. It is how much money brought into the country by foreign tourists circulates in the country's economy and benefits others directly and indirectly. It is how much money brought into the country by foreign tourists circulates where? In the country's economy and benefits others directly and indirectly. So how does multiplier effect happen? It is created when money filters down through the economy and in the process benefits the different organization. So what are we saying here, Mr. Nkoyen? I'm saying that international tourists' money is spent on, remember, they need our products and services. It is spent on products and services that are provided by different service providers who offer those goods and services for the tourists. It is that part of foreign exchange. So international tourists, money is spent on what? On the different products that they're going to be getting us. They need to buy the services that are provided by the service providers who offer those goods and services for the tourists. Then, the more they are spending, we are saying there are those who are benefiting directly and there are others who are benefiting how? Indirectly. I'll elaborate on that further. So multiply effect, it is how much money brought into the country by foreign tourists. Then what does this money do? It circulates in the country's economy and benefits others directly, and some are benefiting indirectly. This money, it is created when money filters down, right, from the tourists to other sectors. You will see the diagram that I will have. It is showing what a multiply effect in a circular flow. So international tourist money is spent on products and services that are provided by service providers, and who obviously we know that the tourist has to pay for those goods and services. The direct and indirect effect on the GDP says what? Multiplier effect motion. Let's check. How does this multiplier effect work? Let me try to do this. This is my chain. This is my chain. This is my chain. And there's my chain, right? They may say maybe show us multiply effect in a diagram, right? Maybe it can be a circular flow or in a paragraph. So I'm going to start here. Mine is in a circular flow. So this is going to be motion number 1. And here, number 2, here, number 3, then here, number 4, then here, number 5. As you can see, this is going to be a step-by-step process, right? I'm going to try to explain this diagram. What are we explaining here? We are still explaining what? Multiplier effect. The first one, we are saying this tourist now has arrived in South Africa, and then they decide, okay, let me first go to the accommodation sector. You need to know how to use tourism-related examples here. Number 1, the tourist decides to stay in a hotel. Let us say Protea Hotel. Protea Hotel, where? In Sandton or Braamfontein, there's Parktonian Hotel there. The tourist decides to stay in a hotel. Obviously, what must this person do? After they exchange their currencies, they need to pay what? For their stay, number 1, at the hotel. Right? They've received their hotel room and so on. At the hotel, he decides to make use of the laundry services. Right? Obviously, there are machines there. Someone is going to wash for them. Then what must they do? They need to pay. Right? This is the motion that happens. This is now when the first money filters in the economy. How? Immediately after loaning, the person decides, let me just go and have some refreshments or some beverages by a bar. Then he decides to buy a drink. It is not for free. Then he decides later after the bar, let me get something to eat. Then they ordered what? Food by the restaurant. There by the restaurant, they need to pay for that. Then they have paid for the above. This is what? The chain of what? Of multiply effect. Number 1, the tourist decides to stay in a hotel. Then at the hotel, he decides to make use of laundry services that is not for free. Meaning money is being spent. From there, he wants to drink something. He goes to the bar, he pays. From there, he wants to eat. He goes to the local restaurant, he eats. Then they are paying again. The tourist decides to stay for 3 nights or 4 days and so on. Then it is time to check out. Then what must he do during checkout? He pays for his stay. Then what does this do? It brings what? An income, a direct income for the hotel. Let me just go back. Remember, I said here it is how much money brought into the country by foreign tourists, and I said, sorry, others benefit directly and others benefit how? Indirectly. So this spending at the hotel, it brings what? A direct income for who? For the hotel. It brings a direct income for who? For the laundry department. It brings a direct income for who? For the food and beverage establishments there by the hotel. Then what will the hotel do now with this direct income from the tourist? With income from the tourists, the hotel has to pay what? Salaries to its staff, maybe on the 15th or month end. The salaries comes from whose money? From the tourist money. Can you see? This now becomes what? A chain. Then now, who has benefited now from the tourists? The staff. The hotel staff has benefited from the income of the tourists. Then they decide, oh, okay, it is month end. I need to buy groceries for my house. Where are they going? ShopRite, Pick n Pay, Boxer, and so on. Checkers, and so on. They get what? Food. Who's benefiting now? ShopRite, Checkers. Who's benefiting now? Woolworths Food. Who's benefiting now? Boxer. Then, oh, I still have more money left with me. Remember, they just got paid. They decide to go to a clothing store. Maybe they go to Uzi, Markham's, Jet, and so on to buy some clothing or school uniform for their kids. Who's benefiting now? Another sector it is benefiting. And those other businesses, they make what? Indirect profit. From whose money? From the tourist money. That is what multiply effect. The chain, remember, started when that moment when the tourist decided that, no, I want to stay at the hotel. Obviously, that is not for free. The hotel made what? A direct income. Then the money is flowing from the hotel to the employees. Then the money is flowing, it is flowing from the hotel staff to what? To the grocery stores, to the clothing stores. Maybe they need fuel, then it will go there. Maybe they need to pay school fees. Then those other people are benefiting from that money. They are benefiting how? Indirectly. Then we are saying this can become a very long chain up until when the tourist leaves the country. With money from the tourists, right? Remember we said they are staying. The more they stay, it is more tourism businesses will open and people will get what? Jobs. Money stays in the country or area up until to the point when the tourist leaves the country or leaves the area. So that is multiplier effect. There are many examples that you can use besides this one of the hotel. Right? Remember, they can say in a paragraph form, explain the multiplier effect. So you need to make sure that you know how to use tourism related examples. Right? I'm going to give you 2 minutes so that you can try to draw this chain and show the multiplier effect. I'll be back just now. Okay, right. We are back. We are still busy with foreign exchange. It is tourism. If you're also not able to jot down the whole diagram, you can just take a picture of it, and then you'll write it down. So multiply effect, I said, it is how much money brought into the country by foreign tourists. What does that money do? It circulates in the country and benefits others directly and others indirectly. The tourist decides to stay in a hotel. At the hotel, he makes use of laundry service or a bar and orders food by the restaurant. Obviously, that is not for free. Then they pay. They stay for 4 nights or so. Then they decide to check out. Then they pay again. And that creates what? A direct income for the hotel. The hotel needs to pay its service providers. The hotel needs to pay the staff. The hotel needs to pay electricity and. So other industries, they benefit indirectly from who? From the tourist money. And I said this money can flow in a country or in an area up until the point whereby we lose it when what happens? When the tourist leaves the area. Right. Then we move to these two concepts, strong rand and weak rand. Remember, I said to you this week it is foreign exchange part 1. Then next week we will deal with part 2, whereby we are going to be looking at calculation. So now we first need to know the concepts first, or the terminology. You will hear that people say, hey, our currency is very strong, our currency is very weak, things are bad and so on. But what do they actually mean when they say that? So we are saying the word strong and weak currency relates to the value of different currencies at a particular period. The words strong or weak currency relates to the value, meaning how much are you buying one currency, right? The word strong or weak currency relates to the value of different currencies at a particular period. Why? Because we are saying currencies are not the same. What do we mean by that? We are saying currencies, they do what? They fluctuate. That is why we're going to talk about the strong rand and also a weak rand, right? So the words strong and weak currency, they relate to the value of different currencies at a particular period. Let's check now. So we are saying currencies fluctuate. The other day it will be strong, the other day it will be weak, right? Remember that table that we were doing earlier that was showing you a strong and a weak. I said a currency, it is strong when you are paying less to buy foreign currency. Then a currency is weak when we are paying more rands to buy that particular currency. Then this brings us to the term of currency fluctuations. So what do we mean by this, Mr. Nkonyeni? When we talk about currency fluctuations, we are saying the exchange rate does not remain the same. It does what? It constantly changes. What do you mean by that? We are saying it constantly fluctuates, or it increases or decreases in a value when second by second or daily. Right? Hence, those people who are doing forex, they are always on their phone. Those, if you can go to Johannesburg Stock Market Exchange, you'll also see that those figures are changing time and again. So what do we call that? We call it what? Currency fluctuation. Fluctuation, it is the term for these constant changes or variations or the value going up or going down. Hence, we are saying it is a link to strong and weak rate. So currency fluctuation, it is day-to-day changes in the value of one currency, right, in relation to another currency. It is what? Currency fluctuation. Just add that concept down. Currency fluctuation, it is we are saying the exchange rate does not remain the same. If you remember that table that we looked at earlier, they constantly change or fluctuate or increases or decreases in the value second by 2nd. Right. I wanted to show you this. So you might come across a graph like this. So this graph shows us what, as you can see here, this line, right? It is going up, going down, going up, going down. So what do we call this? We call it what? Fluctuation. Right? So those changes, they are fluctuating. There's another graph this side. As you can see, I'm going to deal with this graph just now. In September, there it was here, and then in December, there it was. It remained constant when you compare with November. Then check June, then it went up. So what do we call this? Fluctuations. Let me just go back. Right. Then we are moving to tips to analyze currency rate tables. Tables, graphs, or sheets, right? You will see that on your question 3 of your papers, you are going to be given either something like this one, then what do we call this one? A foreign exchange table, right? Or you'll come across a normal graph like this one. It is also speaking about what? Currency exchange. You'll come across a graph like this one. It is still talking about what? Currency exchange. But now I need to teach you or give you skills on how to interpret these graphs or tables. Let's check. You might be given a table like this one. And then what is tip number 1? Number 1, read the examiner's instructions. What are they saying that I must do as a learner? Let's check this first one. They are saying study. Study is a verb, right? So it means it is shocking sometimes when you get a question paper, it does not have any pencil on it. So I'm like, how did this person interpret this? How did this person study? So the instruction for the examiner, they say, study the exchange rate table and banknotes below and answer the questions that follow. Let me just try to analyze this table. The first column, our table has 4 columns. The first column, what do we have? The countries, right? 1, United Kingdom. 2, European countries. 3, you have what? United States of America. Then the middle block, what do we have? The currency codes, 3 letter codes, right? I told you GP means what? Greater British, and then P, it means they use pounds. These are the countries in Europe. What do they use? They use euro, and then US dollars. Right? Analyze each block separately, right? And then block number 3, then we are going to deal with, we've got BBR and also BSR. We will deal with this next week. But what do we have on these 2 columns? We have our exchange rates. These are our exchange rates, right? Both BBR and also BSR. Remember, we said it's an exchange rate. It is how much the bank will charge you for that particular currency. It is the value of one currency in relation to the other. So the first column, you have the countries. The middle, you've got the currency that is used in that particular country. And then the last 2 columns, you've got what? The exchange rates. And then inside, you've got what? Those amounts. Obviously, these are the amounts in rands. Right? So tip number 1, I said what? Read the instructions of the examiner. Number 2, check the heading. Right? Let's go to this one. The examiner says study is a verb again. Study or interpret or analyze. Study the South African rand. So what are we talking about here? This is the title there. South African rand versus what? Dollar exchange. So we know, oh, what are they doing here? They are comparing those 2 currencies. Study the South African rand to US dollar exchange rate graph below and answer the question. Number 1, check the. Let's go to the tips. Read the instructions. We did that. Check the heading. I've identified the heading, the South African rand to US dollar exchange rate. Let's check tip number 4. Identify the currencies being compared. On that graph, we said we are comparing what? Rand to US dollars. And then on this graph, what are they comparing? They are comparing the 3 foreign currencies: Greater British Pound, the euros, and US dollar. Let's check another tip. Identify the years or days being compared, right? Where will you find this? Obviously there on your key. Let's check. Here we are not given the date. Sometimes your exchange rate table will have the date, or the day, right? They'll be comparing today and the previous day. Let's check this side. Here are the years here. September 2013 and October 2013. So here they are busy assessing what? They are checking what? How did the rand to dollar perform in September, right? We know the month and the year. And also, how did the rand to dollar perform where? The next month. Let's check another tip. Check what's going on your y-axis, and also check what is going on your x-axis. Then identify your currencies and the exchange rate. Go inside the graph and identify the up and down. Remember, the up and down shows what? The currency fluctuation. Let's go on this graph. On this graph, let's check our y-axis. There we have, and then this side we have what? Our x-axis. What do we have on our y-axis? Here we have our amounts in rands, right? We have our amounts in rands, or our exchange rates, or our exchange rates, right? It starts 9 rand 70, 980, 990, 10 rand, 1010. Obviously, it is what? Those years, right? And then on your x-axis, what do we have now? We have the month, the 2 months being compared. September ends here. And then from here, it is the 1st of October up until the 23rd of October. Obviously, on this side, we've got the years or the days, okay, and also the months, right? Then you go inside now. So here, this gray line here, it is what? The currency fluctuation and the value of each currency. For example, on the 23rd, how much were you buying $1? There it is. So maybe you can say 9 rand 89 cents or 9 rand 84. Yeah, here it is 9 rand maybe 84 cents. Then let's go on the 7th. Here's the 7th. Then you go up. Then here you are buying $1 with what? It is exactly 10 rand. This is you now going inside your graph to try to interpret it. Those are the tips. I said number 1, read the instruction. Number 2, check your heading. Number 3, identify your currencies that have been compared. Number 4, identify the years or days that have been compared. Number 5, check your y-axis. Number 6, check what is going on the x-axis. Then identify your currencies and the exchange rates. Then go inside the graph and analyze what is going on. Then you go to your questions. Read the instructions of the examiner. Check the heading. Identify the currencies being compared. Identify the years or days being compared. Check your y-axis. Check your x-axis. Identify your currencies and their exchange rates. Go inside the graph and analyze the trend. What is going on? Is it going up or it is going down? And try to be accurate there, because this is money. Then we move. Okay. There's another graph again. Point number 1, I said check what? Instructions. Study. Study, it is a verb. Study the bar graph below and answer the questions. Exchange rate. What was being compared? Exchange rate of South African rand to euros between, there's the month and the years. Here they're comparing the 2 years, right? Then I said check your y-axis, and then here you've got the x-axis. Obviously here on your y-axis you've got what? The amounts or exchange rates in rands. And then on your x-axis, what we have here, obviously you've got what? The months. Then you go inside your graph, then you can see here we are seeing what do you call this? We call it what? Fluctuation. You can see 1, 2, 3 is going up, another month that is what? Currency fluctuation. And this can help you to actually identify the value of each currency in that particular year. Right, so what are the things that are influencing currency fluctuation? The things that are making the currencies to fluctuate. Obviously, in the first one, it is the inflation rate that we have in the country. The interest rates, right? Remember, people are living in debt. The terms of trade, political and economical instability in a country. So what happens in a country, for example, also in the country's economics can make the currency to drop or to go up. Employment levels in the country, they also make the currency to do what? To fluctuate. Let's just move back a bit to strong rand and weak rand. So this is my explanation. What do we mean by strong? Strong rand, it is when you pay less to buy foreign currency. So when you are paying less money to buy foreign currency, then we know that that particular currency, it is strong. It means the value compared to other currencies, it is improving. The money from that country, it is politically and economically stable. It means we can buy more foreign currency because it will be cheaper for us to get it. Then what do we call that? We call it what? Strong currency or strong rand. Strong rand, it is when you pay less to buy foreign currency. It means the value compared to other currencies, it is improving. It means that the money from that country, it is politically and economically stable. It means we can buy more foreign currency. Weak currency, our currency will be weak when we pay more to buy what? Foreign currency, meaning it is going to be expensive for us to buy what? That foreign currency. It means the value compared to other currencies has depreciated over time. Money from that country is not politically and economically stable. It means we can buy less foreign currency. Then our currency will be weak. Remember, these notes can also be downloaded later, especially these parts of the graphs that I was looking at when we're looking at the fluctuations. Like this one and so on. So if you want to go further, you can also download the slides, this presentation later, and also those tips that I've given to you. So what are the causes, what are the things, what are the contributing factors that are making a currency to be weak? Remember, why do you borrow people money? So that you can make what? Profit. So if our interest rates are very low, then it means our currency is going to be weak. If you've got high inflation is when now we are paying more to buy goods and services, then that is going to contribute to our currency to be weak. Poor domestic tourism, when people do not travel inside their own country, then our currency is going to be weak. When you've got political unrest, fights in the country, riots, and so on, then that is also going to contribute to our country to have what? A weak currency. Factors contributing to a strong currency. What makes a currency to be strong? When a country has high interest rates, lower inflation, when people are doing domestic tourism, when there's peace in the politics of the country, or when the government has less debt, then that means what? Our currency, it is going to be strong. Right. Then what are the effects? Right. Remember this, they can ask you their own question 3 on your paragraph questions. That is why I said this is part 1. Then next week I'll do part 2 of the calculation. You might maybe fail your calculations or lose marks on your calculations, but if you know your concepts, this is where you can also get tips. So this one, they normally like to ask it in a paragraph form. What? The effects of a strong currency, the consequences or the impacts of a strong currency. What will happen if we are saying we have a strong currency? Remember, I said a strong currency, we pay less to buy foreign currency. So what could be the effects of a strong currency? Number 1, it is going to be affordable for South Africans who travel overseas, right? Because their currency will be weak compared to ours. Then you will take advantage of that and travel to those countries, because we know that we are going to receive more money for our country. But you need to remember, these ones can have both negative and positive effects. Number 1, if we have a strong currency, it is going to be affordable for us to travel overseas, right? But we will have what? Less foreign visitors. That is a negative thing. Then we are not saying we are not going to have visitors, but we are saying less, right? Some will still take a risk and then they will come here. Foreign visitors will receive less money for their currency, because at that particular period, our currency will be strong compared to the years, right? We know that if we receive less foreign tourists, obviously there will be a lot of job losses in the tourism sector because of a demand and supply, right? If we have less tourists visiting, then it means that some people will have to be chopped. Then travel will be cheaper for us, as I said, because we are going to be having a stronger currency. Then we will have more buying powers in the countries with strong currencies, meaning if our currency is strong, then we'll take advantage and go to the countries that have a weak currency. Then we'll have what? More buying power. What do I mean by that? We'll have more money to spend there overseas. Then when you have a strong currency, again, it can also have a positive impact on domestic tourism, because, okay, some people will say, let me just opt to do what? To travel and spend my money in my country. Then that is a positive thing for us. The effects of a strong currency, right? This may be asked for you to explain maybe for 4 marks in a paragraph form. Be careful. When you have a strong currency, it will be cheaper for us to travel overseas. Less foreign visitors will come to the country. Foreign visitors will have less money for their currency. Job losses in the tourism sector. Travel will be cheaper. Domestic tourism will increase. Then we will also have what? More buying power. Just add any points there. So when we have the effects of a strong rand, we also need to look at the effects of a weak ZAR. What are we saying there? The effects of a weak currency, when the currency is weak, then it is going to do what? It is also going to have for us, it is going to increase what? International tourism. In what way? Remember, our currency will be weak for those international markets. So they will take advantage of our country, because they know, they will say, let us go to that country that has a weak currency. An advantage for us, we are saying, as much as our currency will be weak, but the mere fact that they will choose us over other countries, then it will be a positive thing. In what way? Because international tourism will increase, and we know that the more they come here, it is the longer they stay, and the longer they stay, it is more they do what? They will be spending money where? On our products and services. So we still need them, whether our currency is weak or our currency is strong. So when a currency is weak, it is going to have an increase in international tourism. Number 2, more foreign tourists will be visiting. Number 3, more foreign exchange income. Right? More foreign exchange income. Then we are saying an advantage, yes, we will have a weaker currency, but South Africa will be seen as a cheaper and value for money destination. It will be seen as a cheaper and value for money destination, because now people will say, let's go there. Tourists will stay long, and we are saying the longer they stay, an advantage is that it is the more they will be spending their monies here in South Africa. Then with the high demand of international tourists, then the more they come here, it will be mean what? More demand for people to work in the tourism sectors, meaning what? Our economy can grow and people will get what? Jobs. So those are the effects of what? Of a weak and a strong rand. This one they like to ask you guys in the paragraph form. So be careful so that you can know your points. Then I need to move to the activities. Let me just move a bit. What have we learned so far? Today we only looked at the concepts or terminology used in the tourism sector in terms of the foreign exchange. You should know by now what is local currency. You should know what is a foreign currency. You should know what is GDP. You should know what is an exchange rate. You should know what is currency fluctuations and so on. By now, you should also know what do you mean by a weak currency and also what do you mean by strong currency. By now, you should also know the effects or the consequences of what? Of a weak currency and also a strong currency. You should also know how to interpret the foreign exchange graphs or the foreign exchange tables, because I gave you those tips. Let's just move now to the few activities. Remember, I said the activities are very important because there we are trying to assess the things that we have done, right? If you think what we're doing is not going to be helpful, just check these activities. Let's check activity number 1. For example, here they are saying this was then one of the multiple choice part of section A. So remember, we're just dealing with just now with weak and strong rand, and the question is on 1.1.5. The rand is regarded stronger when it performs as follows against the euro. So when, particularly they are saying here, when was the South African rand strong? Then you need to remember, what did I say? It's a strong rand. It is when we pay less to buy forex. Forex, it is what? Foreign currency. Let's check. Number A, rand was 9 rand 9 cent compared to the euro. B, the rand was 10 rand 9 cent compared to the euro. C, the rand was 8 rand 77 cents compared to the euro. Number D, the rand was 14 rand 9 cents compared to the euro. So on which day or when was the rand strong? So our answer here will be what? Sorry, C, because there you are paying what? 8 rand 77 cents to do what? To buy what? 1 euro. So you might get such a question in your multiple choice, but they are not saying explain, right? They are trying to check whether do you know how to interpret those amounts, and you also understand what do you mean by a strong rand or a weak rand, right? So C, it is our correct answer for that question. Let's move now to the second activity. Remember, I was dealing with concepts or the terms. Look, for 5 marks, they are coming. Not all of them are relevant. Let me just highlight the ones that we dealt with today. It is 1.2.1, 1.2.2, and 1.2.5. These ones are 3 marks. So I said, remember, you might fail the calculations, but when you know your concepts, you can also get marks, because remember, our strengths are not the same in terms of answering the papers, but we are hoping that you will nail your calculations and you'll also nail your concept. Let's just check this. Give one word. These are the examiner's instructions. Give one word or term or concept for each of the following descriptions by choosing a word or term from the list. Write only the word or the term next to question 1.2.1 to 1.2.5. Then we are given the concept. Let me just highlight the ones that are relevant. Maybe this one, GNP, exchange rate, we spoke about it. Currency fluctuation, we spoke about it. Multiplier effect, we spoke about it. GDP, we spoke about it. And then duty-free goods and prohibited, we spoke about it in term 1. So that's not relevant for now. Then how many concepts do we have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 that were relevant for today. Let's check 1.2.1. It says the total value of all goods and services produced in a country. So which one is it? Is it GDP or GNP? We'll see the memo later. The second one says the ability of a South African tourism industry to create direct and indirect jobs. You need to remember one of the concepts that we dealt with. And then concept 3, the changes in the value of currencies in a given day. Right? This is what we're dealing with. 1.2.5, what do we have? The changes, remember there I was talking about what? The currency fluctuation. So here it will be currency fluctuation. And then 1.2.2, it will be multiplier effect. And then 1.2.1, GDP. Can you see we also have GNP? So be careful there. Let me check if I was correct. Right, correct. The first one, GDP. The second one is, I said, multiplier effect. And then 1.2.5, it is what? Currency fluctuation. Again, in your question 1, give one word. Do you see why the terms are very important? Give one word or term for each of the following descriptions by choosing the correct word from the list. Let's check what are we given. BSR, JPY, weakening rand, another code of Japanese yen, exchange rate, GBP, BBR, the pound, foreign exchange, and strengthening. So 1.2.1, give us the term used when converting local currency into foreign currency. What is that term? You need to know it. We call it what? Exchange. Foreign exchange. Yes. The term used when converting local currency into, I spoke about that. Currency information displayed at the reception area in big hotels for the convenience. What do we call that? Exchange rates, right? The rate a bank will use to calculate the amount of British pound, what do you call that? Again, exchange rates. Those are the rates that we spoke about. When the rand shows a steady decline in comparison to the British pound, then we are saying what? It is what? Weakening rand, right? You need to know that. And also the currency codes from grade 11. Let's check whether we are correct. This is the memo. The first one, foreign exchange. Number 2, exchange rate. Number 3, BBR. Number 1.2.4, weakening rand, and JPY. Then this one, this is the main one. Check now. Now they are saying, remember I said here they can ask you in terms of the impacts of a weak rand and a strong rand. But now check, they are saying discuss the concepts of foreign currency but they are saying in a paragraph. Include the following aspect. The first one, they say discuss what they need for other currencies. Why do tourists need other currencies? Obviously, you need to explain. There again, they are saying exchange rates, meaning you need to explain what are exchange rates. But now they are saying in a paragraph form. Then number 3, they are talking about what? The changes in value. What are we talking about there? We are talking about what? Exchange rates. Then check this one. Okay, this one will be irrelevant for today. But the bullet 4, now they are saying discuss the impacts of a weak rand, right? Weak currency on what? Inbound and outbound. So the impacts can also be positive on both inbound and also outbound tourism. those who enter the country, and also those who leave the country. Remember, we spoke about this in grade 10 in the previous slides. So in a paragraph form, we are almost done. The need for the currency, what is expected there from you? When tourists travel to another country, they need to exchange their local currency for the foreign currency used in that country. Then if you have something more or less like that, you're going to get 2 marks. Exchange rate, then you need to explain now the second point in the paragraph to explain what is an exchange rate. It is used to determine the amount of tourists should get for his or her own currency when exchanging it to another. Or it is in foreign exchange, it is the amount that is multiplied or divided by the current exchange rate. Or it is the value of one currency expressed in the form of another currency. Changes in value, remember, then we are talking about what? Currency fluctuation. So they are saying here, the exchange rate fluctuates daily, and it is determined by trading on financial world markets, right? So there they were expecting you to explain what do you mean by changes in the value. And then the last one here, they were talking about what? The impacts. The first one was supposed to give us the impacts on inbound, and the second one on outbound. On inbound, obviously, a weak rand will have caused what? An increase in foreign visitors to South Africa. A weak rand will cause what? An increase in tourist spending, meaning more money. A weak rand will cause what? Increase in length of stay, meaning people are going to stay longer. This is what? Inbound tourism. Outbound now, a weak rand will cause what? Fewer South Africans will choose to travel away overseas because what? The currency, it is weak. South African outbound tourists will spend less at international destinations, and so on and so on. Right? This one, it is about what? That currency exchange. Remember I said, know your heading, check your y-axis, check your x-axis, check what's going on inside, identify your years. Let's just check one question before we leave. Again, state the value of the South African rand in relation to the US dollar, meaning you're supposed to go inside your graph and check the amount there, right? The line graph shows daily changes in the exchange rate. Give the term, what do we call that? Currency what? Fluctuation. Determine the date and the value of an exchange rate when the rand was the weakest and when the rand was strongest. Then you must go there and identify or analyze your graph. There are the answers there that you can also be able to go through on your own. Right, we are going to end here for today. What have we learned today? We've learned about the tourism concept. We also know how to study graphs and analyze tourism graphs, and we also did some of the activities in terms of foreign exchange. Thank you for watching. Let's not forget that we still have COVID-19. Let's wear our masks. Let's practice social distancing and sanitize. Hashtag I do tourism. Hashtag you can do this. Hashtag Kiniba Tembe Wene Babaga Ayabonga was here. I'll see you next time. Bye bye.